Some of the most powerful and engaging stories are personal stories, the stories that we tell each other. And this afternoon, you're going to hear 8 different stories from 8 different people who live here in Coquitlam. It's called the Story Project, and it's local storytellers sharing real-life stories, each coming from a diverse and rich background in our community. And each is a volunteer storyteller too. This takes some gumption to get up here and tell a story, and we really appreciate that you're brave enough to get up in front of a crowd and tell your own story. So they spent many hours crafting these tales as well and working together to create this program. They've become friends, I believe, in the process. So thank you for being here. And our first storyteller is Yetti Foulds, who has lived, Yetti Foulds, who has lived in Coquitlam for many years, and she's going to take us back in time to Maillardville, or Maillardville, might be closer to the French pronunciation, as it once was. So please welcome to the Story Cafe stage, Yetti Foulds.
To tell a little bit my background, I'm really Dutch origin because I'm a Dutch Walrite. So I met my husband in 45, end of May 45, and we got married in October 45, and he went back to discharge in January 46, and I came over in July 46, and in the end of 47, we had our first child. And then we moved to Coquitlam here in Maillardville. So it was quite a rush years, you know. We had no time to recuperate. But anyway, we came in Maillardville, a little railroad station on Burnett Street. It was New Westminster. And had no place to go, but his uncle lived there. So we phoned his uncle and went over there by taxi. And then the next day, my husband ran around all over the place to find a place to stay. But he found 2 little houses, one on one lot. So we used the one house for sleeping quarters and the other house for eating, because his parents were in the business too. So anyway, but Coquitlam Maillardville was completely different. From Schoolhouse Road, there was a Millside school, it was an elementary school. Doreen came here for years, she was the principal there. And as you go farther in, you came across by a mink farm. There was a mink farm in the corner there on Burnett Street. And on the other side was Frank's dollar store. And he was, you know, he got everything imaginable in there. And from there we went down to Begin Street. On the bottom of Begin Street was a fire hall, a small little place. And then you went farther down and you must see City Hall. Well, it was a municipal hall. It was a big house, and the council quarters were on the main floor, and on one side was the RCMP in the basement, and on the other side was the caretakers in the basement. And then on the back of the barns, and we used the barns for maintenance public works department, so everything was in the one corner. And then across from there was Fraser Mills. You had to go, had wooden sidewalks and maple trees on there, and so had and behind there, and mostly the residents were living were just from Fraser Mills, but executive more or less, like it, you know, the higher up the office staff. And then you had the railroad track behind here, and behind the railroad track there was a little store and a little gas station, and then behind there was a Chinese huts, they called them. They got their own little huts built, and that's where they were living. So anyway, then in the Mackin Park, that was looked after, but owned by Fraser Mills, and they really made a good job of it. As a matter of fact, the paper, the newspaper, the Colombian paper, they call it, and they had had swimming lessons, free swimming lessons. I'm telling you, there's a lineup in front of the city hall there, you know, for swimming lessons. But anyway, and from there you got two bee bars, the Jubilee and the Woods. Well, most people went in the Jubilee because you could cash your paycheck there, see, and that's why they had the down bar. So, and anyway, and there was a bowling alley and Sam's Theatre. And from there was a gas station, and then there was a little bridge there, this overpass now of the freeway. But there was, and on the other side of the little bridge there we had Swift's, slaughterhouse. And you sure could know when we were working there because the smell was horrible if the wind was going the right way. So, and on Austin Road there was a chicken farm. We always bought our eggs up Austin Road. And where Charles Best High School is now, that used to be a dumping station. And the kids used to love to go with the dad because the rats were just thrown into some bears and they couldn't get out of the car, but they had oodles of rats. So anyway, and the transportation was horrible. They had one went down up the hill, on Doss Hill, and one went up Austin. But I mean, it was only, and the winters were very cold because they had lots of snow, especially in 48 and 49. There was so much snow, the trucks couldn't make it up the hill, the buses went turning, and in the fall was quite often we had quite fog. We always had to listen to the radio if the schools were open, because you couldn't see in front of your hand. As a matter of fact, my brother-in-law got married, and his reception was across the river, on a bridge, and my uncle had to go walk up front with a flashlight so he could know if he was going the right way, because he was really, you couldn't see anything. And Como Lake froze over, and they were allowed, they even took the Zamboni down there to clean the ice, and they were allowed to go, when the ice was safe, they were allowed to go skating there. But we always skated beforehand because Fry's Corner was a slough, and we always went to Fry's Corner before the lake opened up. As a matter of fact, one year it was so cold that the Fraser River froze over. You could walk right across the Fraser River, and that never happens. It won't happen now. But anyway, the summers were lots of fun. We always had a May Day parade, and the kids were doing maypole dancings and that, and had quite a different gymnastics and stuff like that. There was there was an activity there all the time, and it was we had 3 baseball teams. One of the RCMP, I know Corbett Stinton was the captain of it, and one of the firemen, and one of the New Westminster hockey team, the Royals. There's a real old hockey team there. We always had season tickets for that. But then they had a baseball team too. And once a year on the long weekend in May, they always had a tournament, a mission. So we always go pack our lunches up and go to Mission and then down to the baseball tournament. And the last day when they came home, they had one fellow took the turn too fast from the hockey team, took the turn too fast and killed himself. So it was really a bad feeling, to see that happen. And anyway, and the activities, that's were the activities in there. But our kids, when they grown up, it was time for ourselves to have, that was time that we had some fun too. So we joined the Legion, and we joined the Legion and we went to every convention that there was, so we saw a lot of same places too. And then we got to go to well, my husband had, because he was in the army, he had a lot of nightmares. And I said, what we should do? We should go back to Europe and you should go and see, what the Normandy is and what that's all like. Maybe you feel better like. So anyway, that's what we did. So we went with a group, travel group, and so I always went down to the mayor, John Kingsborough first, and then Richard Stewart, and we got pins. I got Coquitlam pins from there. And then we took 100 Coquitlam pins. I know the mayor never could figure out how I got so many, and he never could get that many. But anyway, so we could take the pins along and give them to the adults. And we took 100 Canada pins. We went to James Moore and got 100 Canada pins. And those were for the children in the buses, the school buses, because they got the trips going from school in Europe, like. And then we came to a bright idea, it would be nice to get some flags. So we saw the mayor again, and we got pretty chummy with the mayor. But anyway, so we took a flag, and in Belgium, they have a Canadian museum, and it's all Canadian. So we give it to the fellow there. Oh, he was so friendly, so pleased with it that he got a Canadian flag. As a matter of fact, the Americans came over and wanted to buy his museum. Pay $1 million for it, they said. No, he says, because it's not American, this is Canadian, and you're not going to touch it. So anyway, he was quite proud of it, because they were right in the middle. And then we went to the next year, you know, wherever the trip's going to take us. And so then we went to Holland, and we give a flag to a place where there was a lot of fighting going on. So they were really pleased that had something Canadian, you know, because they admire the Canadian, they still do, because, you know, the liberators. As a matter of fact, we went on the Remembrance Day in the 4th of May in Holland. We went down, my husband always used to lay a wreath for the veterans over there, but there's a wreath over there. And so a little girl came by, and my mother, and she said, "My girl never met a liberator, can you shake your hands?" You know, so it was really something. And then, 3 years ago, we went to the 70th anniversary of D-Day. So there's a house there, but it's first liberated. There's a big Canadian flag up front there. And so they're really proud. Every time we go there, the man always says, "You don't want to go home, you want to stay with me for a while, a couple of days, a couple of weeks." But then, you know, we were having a tour, so we couldn't stay there with him. But anyway, he was so proud. He had the Canadian flag, you know, and he put it up, and they were just taking a video of the house there. So, but I mean, you always have to eat there, and you got to drink wine there, and you got to stay there, you know. But everybody got to know us so well because we went on the different trips, right? So we never forgot to Coquitlam or Maillardville, no matter. Even in our olden days, you know, because it was 3 years ago we went. So even in our olden days, we still, you know, had Coquitlam and Maillardville in mind. And there's no better place to live as in Coquitlam. So that's my story.